I am Alpha and Omega, the beginning and the end, the first and the last. These are the words that begin one of the weirdest games of the late 90s. According to Wikipedia, which my high school teachers told me to never cite, but also that school caused a bunch of my mental health issues, so like, fuck you, Xenogears was first imagined as both a plotline for Final Fantasy VII and a sequel to Chrono Trigger, but was allowed to be developed as its own thing, but oh boy. Oh boy. This game is a cult classic with a notably rocky development. This will be a bit of a theme. Rocky development cycles. The budget had basically run out when the second disc's content was being made, so a lot of story is told by the characters narrating it on a wooden chair in the story void, where stories are told, and you basically don't see the world map for most of that disc, and it looks very different when you return. The translation was done by basically one man, Richard Honeywood, due to its multiple difficult concepts, which included references to Nietzsche, Freud, Jung, and various classic sci-fis, including the reference that still scars me to this day, Soylent Green. If you know, you know. There's also a lot of religious references too, which didn't help the notorious translation difficulties. Apparently a lot of these references were skirted around in the translation for fear of offending the American audience. Apparently, the original Japanese name of Deus, the final boss, was originally going to be Yahweh, to which Honeywood said Yabeyo, or that's dangerous in English, and the Japanese staff found the similar pronunciations funny, so they then considered Yabe, but ultimately Deus is Deus in both Japanese and English. So, onto the story. Xenogears begins with a spaceship that gets hacked, so its captain tells everyone to evacuate, but the hacked ship guns down evacuees. The captain makes the ship self-destruct. Amongst the remnants of the ship, the mother of humanity stands completely nude.
Right, me crew. We've been hacked. Go evacuate. Moi. We're leaving, goodbye. Why the fuck did I kiss him?
Explosion!
My crew are dead after I told them to evacuate to the confines of space, and I've set the ship to blow up. All for nothing. Boom. I am incredibly indecent.
None of this will be relevant for tens of hours. Almost 10,000 years later, the main protagonist, Fei Fongwang, wakes up in his hometown of Lahan. Everyone is very excited for the upcoming wedding of a village lady to a village man, even though everyone seems to want her to run off with Fei, and, oops, an enemy nation attacks, blows up most of the villagers, including the people who were going to be wed, so Fei hops into an empty robot called a gear in this world, and fights off the invaders. Unfortunately, this doesn't really help with the whole village being exploded thing, so Fei leaves with the village doctor. It's either Saitan or Shitan. I'm going with Shitan, because that's the Japanese pronunciation, and it's ambiguous. Shitan Uzuki, who is human garbage that is, for whatever reason, adored by the creator of Hatoful Boyfriend. Over the course of the game, Faye meets his love interest, Ellie Van Houten, the pantsless love interest, no relation to Milhouse, a blonde airship pirate prince who is okay with marrying his cousin, a big green man, a gun-wielding priest, a tiny girl, a pink koala that can grow really, really big, and a 4,000-year-old tiny girl who can become an adult woman. Blonde airship pirate man's cousin fiancée, Margie, was actually going to be a playable character before she was cut as a party member. There's a still in the final anime cutscene depicting her, and a sketch that I cannot find from Perfect Works, where she has an entire arsenal hidden in her cloak. A significant amount of these people are never really super relevant again after their first meeting is over. Oh yeah, Billy's dad's gear has a feature where it shoots its pilot out of its gun for some fucking reason. That's an awful feature, but also it's so fucking funny at the same time. That's a worse reason for leaving your kids than the traditional left for cigarettes and never came back.
Mommy, why did Dad leave? He shot himself out of a giant gun.
Also, Faye, our emo boy main character, has an angry boy dark side called Id. It's supposed to be a secret that the giant airship throwing angry boy is Faye, but you never see them in the same place physically on screen, and Id's gear is literally the same gear as Faye's, including having the same name. It just has -id on the end. I'm putting id on my hear me out cake! So during the course of the second disc, you get to see the end of the world. Most of the non-plot important people in the world have become gross melty people called Wells, which are like spare parts for the god spaceship Deus. When you finally get back onto the world map, you can't enter most of the towns because everyone's fucking dead. You can, however, go into a Colosseum minigame, which is always fun. I'm a Temps fan, I like those. This game also has nudity. You get to see Faye's pixel dick when Ellie makes him take a shower in her room. You also get to see Myung's side boob, which is considerably more important to me. Oh yeah, Myung. She's the naked lady from the very beginning. She's lived for 10,000 years by body hopping between women, causing trouble, getting her host killed off, and then hopping to the next body. One of her hosts was Faye's mother, and she decided to traumatize him and give him his angry boy dark side because she doesn't want humanity to ascend to godhood, so she'd always stop humanity from progressing past a certain point. Also, she was part of the living god computer and wanted to revive it. On another note, Faye and Ellie have reincarnated many times over the same amount of years as Myung has been alive. Or on this planet, I guess. I don't know how old Myung is. One of his incarnations fathered Emeralda the nanomachine colony with his Ellie. They didn't fuck to create her. I need to add specifically he was a scientist. One of her incarnations was the Pope. One of his other incarnations, Lacan, kind of diverged, and the Lacan personality passed into the cycle of reincarnation. And his other personality became Graf, who is mean and we don't like him. Graf also body hops. You could say he grafts onto them. Graf's latest host is actually Faye's dad, Khan Wang, who doesn't have 100% control all the time. So when Daddy Khan is in the front seat, he becomes a masked man called Wise Man. Wise Man's more like a mentor type to his actual biological son. Faye's first incarnation was a small child called Abel, who was a child who met actual not a spaceship god called the Wave Existence. Ellie's first incarnation was actually a mother figure for Abel. Don't think about it too hard, don't think about it too hard, don't think about it too hard, don't think about it too hard. For my final point, Shitan Uzuki, village doctor / triple agent for the fancy pantsers who live on the fancy pants place. Genuine bona fide fucked up little man with an exhaustive laundry list of crimes, including some war crimes. I mean, he did stop before one war crime because he dueled a man to marry the guy's daughter, but that's neither here nor there about straight people. There's actually something even worse than that. So, there's a part where Faye and Ellie consume some canned meat. Shitan politely declines. A few rooms later, they see where the canned goods are made. If you recall, I said the game references Soylent Green. The canned meat is literally called Soylent System. Shitan lets his friend eat human meat. Not to mood whiplash, but to finish it off the section on a cheerier and sillier note, Ellie's gear is called Vierge, which is French for virgin. She doesn't use it anymore after she and Faye do the diddly squiddly together. She does have an Omni gear, which is the final powered up endgame gear, called El Rigorous, but it's unusable in battle, and if you try to hack it in, it'll crash the game. What do you mean the cute pink mascot thing has an odd? So Xenosaga is the only one of these I haven't had a lot of interaction with. That's partly because it didn't fucking come over here. And I did try and read the screenshot Let's Play, but I kinda lost interest. All the main episodes have a German subtitle that are the names of Friedrich Nietzsche's writings. While I'm writing this script, I am desperately trying to read through plot summaries of the Xenosagas, and I genuinely don't understand anything other than Jesus was in Xenosaga 3. What? Why? Help? So the plot. I can't find a simple plot explanation. It contains a lot of references to Christianity that I only vaguely get, because I literally got a big fat 0 in religious studies in my last year of high school. The joys and sorrows of going to Roman Catholic school the first 16 years of your life. What I do understand is anime Jesus Christ in episode 3. Jesus Christ makes a physical canonic appearance in Xenosaga episode 3. He has a 3-dimensional character model. Why is he white? Also, kos-mos, the series mascot and queen of making cameos in other games, has the soul of Mary Magdalene. One of the main plot points I can make out is that they lost the planet Earth, here called Lost Jerusalem, because for some reason Christianity is vastly important. How do you lose a whole planet in space times? But anyway, yeah, there's a lot of actual religious stuff here that I'm wildly uncomfortable with. So I don't think I'm going to talk about this further, but since this is a video on the Xeno games, I wanted to at least try and understand it. If any of you watching this has actually played the games and can make some sort of sense of it to me, feel free to comment down below. So Xenoblade, this is the game series with people from my neck of the woods acting in it. Nice! The Xenoblade Chronicles series is known for a few things. The dub for the first game was done in the UK, so most of everyone has a London accent. Also Schultz, I'm really feeling it! In the Smash Bros games. The first 2 games actually have really interesting settings. In the first game, the main land masses used to be the gods of the world, until one day they just kind of stopped. So humanity built their societies on the bodies of their gods. The Bionis has humanity, here called Homs, because why not? And the Mechonis has a lot of mean robot people. Not all of them are mean, to my understanding. The second game has people living on the backs of beasts called Titans that swim on clouds. There's not a lot of space for people to exist, and one by one, the Titans are dying and sinking into the cloud ocean, and it's not like new ones are being born. It would be awkward if they fucked with people living on their backs. I think this is a pretty good setup for a problem to be solved as well. There doesn't seem to be much particularly weird about 3's world that I can tell. Apparently it's the fused form of the previous game's worlds. That's a Tales series-ass plot development if I ever saw one. I'll go through each game one by one and explain the basic plot a little bit and explain my thoughts along the way. Because this fucking channel is about me talking about my brain thoughts that I have in my brain. I have too many of them, I have to talk about it. first off, Xenoblade Chronicles 1. First, we get a bit of a flashback. 3 guys are fighting on the front line. The guy you control, Dunban, has a big red sword with magic powers that he can't quite control. The other 2 guys are Dixon and Mumcar. Dixon is cool, Mumcar is an asshole. Cut to the actual main character a year later. Shulk is a guy. He's a bit of a nerd. He lives on Colony 9 and researches stuff. His adoptive dad has a cool sword called the Monado. Oh, his adoptive dad is Dixon, by the way. He has a fun little jaunt outside the colony with his friends Rhino and Fiora. Fiora is a girl, and there is definitely zero implication that she's interested in a heterosexual monogamous relationship with Shulk. I'm a terrible liar. After they come back, the colony is attacked by the Mechons, which are the robot people. Fiora jumps into an unmanned robot, tries to fight off a big dude, and gets gored. Nice! Shulk, Ryan, and Fiora's older brother Dunban are all pretty pissed, so they decide to go on a revenge mission. Yay! They meet several nice people over the course of the game, such as Charlotte, the lady with a gun that can both heal and harm, which is cool, a winged lady, voiced by a northerner doing an RP accent, and a creature. I don't think these creatures engage in canonical debauchery like in Xenogears, but you never know. It's not like I'm against that, it was just kind of a weird choice for your cutesy mascot character to do. Also, Fiora's actually got turned into a robot by the Mechons after becoming a lady skewer, but not in the Sonic Comics way. She gets to come back as a cyborg lady with all the sexy bits intact. As far as I know, the men who got roboted don't dress nearly as slutty as Fiora. It's a big, sprawling game with MMORPG-esque gameplay. The character you control auto-attacks, but you can move around and select your arts on the lower part of the screen using the D-pad. Shulk has a power in the story where he has a "that's so Raven" moment and can briefly see into the future and then actually manifests in the gameplay. In battle, you get a warning if an enemy does a fatal attack on a party member and can warn them and order them to do a specific attack before they kick the bucket. Outside of battle, if you get an item that's for quests you haven't accepted yet, you get a little cutscene and a mark on the item in the inventory so you don't accidentally sell it. These kinds of quality of life features are supremely chef's kiss. Mwah. I don't know why I'm doing that with my hand, because I don't have hand tracking. When this game was being translated for overseas, they apparently never planned for an American release, surprisingly, so the game went to Nintendo of Europe and had a mostly Londoner cast. A lot of the actors for this game are mostly known for roles in a lot of BBC series, and most notably, Melia's voice actress is actually Jenna Coleman, who is most known for Clara Oswald from Doctor Who. She's also from the Northwest, from where I'm from. Hell yeah. Hell yeah. It's also very funny to me that Shulk's Japanese voice is the same actor who played Samatoki from Hypnosis Michael. They're so different. Incongruity is very silly. Shulk is very baby boy and Samatoki is a criminal. An actual felon. Xenoblade Chronicles 2. I haven't actually played this game myself. The main character Rex has a northern accent, which is a given considering his actor is a Mancunian. It also has a bit of a pervier feel than the first game somehow. There's a perfectly good reason for this. I'll explain in a bit, but first, the plot. As I mentioned before, the game takes place on a planet where everyone lives on the backs of big beasties that are mostly super chill with this fact. Some of them aren't super happy, some of them are not super alive and just float in there. Some of the not super alive ones sink. Rex is a salvage diver who goes into Cloud Sea to, well, salvage things such as scrap and ancient technologies to sell. He lives on a relatively small titan that he calls Gramps, which is super weird to hear a northerner say. One day, he gets hired to help a mysterious organization find a blade, which are sentient sword people, called Pyra. He finds Pyra, pitches a tent in his 1920s swimsuit, and agrees to help her find her birthplace of Elysium. Partly because he has a core embedded in his chest. That's grim. Which is said to be on top of World Tree and have considerably more space for people to live on that isn't in danger of crashing into the Cloud Sea. God, those basic plot beats sound familiar. It's the kind of monomyth-based story where the call to adventure is a hot lady. I think one of the reasons why I haven't really touched this game, aside from the fact that I haven't finished the first game yet, is that it bothers me that the main heroine is in some ways an object for the hero to use. She has her own agency as a character, yes, but she was still created by, designed by, and written by men in a really fetishy way that bothers me. One of the main mechanics in this one is that the characters are separated into two types, drivers and blades, and are paired off accordingly. Each driver has their own blade, although I believe you can swap them around. Also, the driver-blade relationship seems to be romantic. That's weird. There's also a gacha system to get more blades, which fortunately doesn't require microtransactions and is just a really weird feature. You can get cannon fodder blades that are like robots, or you can get rare blades who have various character designers that aren't the main artist, some of whom include Shulk and Fiora from previous game and kos-mos and Telos from Xenosaga. Sadly, they couldn't have included any Xenogears characters as they're owned by Square Enix and not Monolith Soft, but I'm sure they would have if they could have. Oddly, I'm not really against having a gacha system in a game as long as it's not using microtransactions as well. Having a somewhat random element to party building is an interesting concept for planning and strategizing for fights. Like with a lot of the Xeno games, this game had a bit of a troubled development. A lot of the staff were taken from this game to work on Breath of the Wild. Breath of the Wild. A lot of Rare Blades stories and designs were outsourced to external studios and then sent back to Monolith for adjusting and adding to the game. Plus, the international reception was divisive. The Japanese loved this game to the point where it was more popular than the first game, but outside of Japan, the change in art style and gameplay and some of the characters' deals didn't go over so well. It's not to say that people didn't like it, but the art style is more anime compared to the first game's almost painterly style. Also, one of the characters has a maid fetish. He made a maid bot. I'm not opposed to maids and stuff, but like, I can see why people would be put off. That said, I want Morag to rescue me from like an evil dragon or something and My friend in their notes said this game is, Child Soldiers the game. So the world of Ionios has two nations locked in an eternal war. Agnes and Keves? I think it's Keves. Agnes likes magic, Keves likes technology. They're kind of basically the Bionis and Mykonos from the first games. Both nations use child soldiers that are born as the physical equivalent of 10 years old, and they're raised only to fight the opposing side. The luckiest live for a decade. The people who die in battle get their juice drained by their enemy into their flame clock, which sustains its soldiers' lives. That sucks. In the beginning, you get to see a 10th birthday for an unimportant, unnamed NPC, and a lady with some very familiar curls and a creepy full-face mask appears. Apparently, if you turn 10 in Ionios, you pose like the Doctor when he regenerates, become glitter, and fly up into the sky in front of the nation's queen. You just T-pose. You kneel and you T-pose. Noah, relatively speaking, seems like a kind-hearted guy. He's an off-seer, so he doots his flute to send off the souls of the departed. It sounds like a euphemism when I say it like that, but it's not a euphemism at all. He has a flute. He'll do it for anyone, friend or foe. He actually bears a lot of similarities to Faye from Xenogears, being a young man with long dark hair that doesn't want to fight but fights regardless, to find out why a war is being fought and ultimately end it. His cool robot person form looks Veltall as well. To further add to that, Project Noah was the working title for Xenogears before they decided against having the controversial religious symbolism in the title too. I always find the protagonists that are horrified by killing interesting. It's an interesting take to have in an industry where most of the time killing is a given and the lives of the non-plot relevant soldiers are unimportant. Noah is a soldier that's used to taking lives, but still respects that they were people who deserved even a basic level of respect. Even if no one else seems to understand it, really. Another game that also had an interesting take on this was Tales of the Abyss, where the protagonist Luke hates killing and his comrades' blasé attitude towards it. It being a natural part of war doesn't make it any less awful. To add to the Xenogears resemblances, like Faye and Ellie, Noah and Mio, the heroine, were on opposing sides, but nonetheless joined together due to circumstances, became friends, and fell in love. They also reincarnated and fell in love with each other loads of times in the past, which also always ended in tragedy. And they also exist at the same time as their past incarnations as well, I believe, which is also true of Faye. The main party has a special power called Ouroboros, like the snake eating its own tail, that kind of Ouroboros. There are 6 party members and 3 boy-girl pairings. Not unlike Tales of Arise, actually. And when activating the Ouroboros form, they combine into one, with the dominant partner affecting the design. Straight people get the fucking straight people powers for being straight. If gay people got special powers from merging together, it looked more like the Dad Voltron from Persona 2. Also, there's a guy called Consul N that I haven't mentioned. The temptation to make jokes about a guy called N in Ferris Wheels is too hard to resist. To end the section, I hope someday we get a same-sex pair that are fucking fated to be together like Noah, Mio, and Faye and Ellie. But that's a long way off in a modern big-budget game. The 3 series games aren't all the way related. Xenogears isn't related to Xenosaga or Xenoblade, irregardless of fandom, and can't be referenced outright because the IP isn't owned by Monolith Soft. It can be referenced thematically, visually, and in the personalities of its characters, though. A lot of the directors Tetsuya Takahashi's later works after Xenogears feel like a bit of a redemption for that game's shortcomings in some ways, especially in Xenosaga. 2 of the characters in that game are basically Faye and Ellie, but children. Faye and Veltall are vaguely referenced in Xenoblade Chronicles 3 by Noah's character. It's just kind of a shame that after all this time, Takahashi's vision for Xenogears can't be brought to full fruition, nor does Square Enix seem interested in porting or remaking the game. Plus, in some ways, I'm not sure you could make it for a modern audience. If you look at it now, it's definitely a product of its time in a lot of ways. Anyway, thank you so much for watching. Xenogears has been a bit of an on and off hyperfixation of mine for a long time, and this channel is for me yapping about stuff that interests me. I'm currently continuing my playthrough of Xenoblade, so if I ever manage to finish that, I might even play the remaining 2 someday as well. Who knows? And thank you all for waiting for me to get over my horrible cold. I've been barely able to breathe without coughing lately, and it finally seems to be getting out of my system, fucking finally. She says, had to take many cough breaks during this recording of this video. Anyway, if you like this video, feel free to follow my socials, and I have a Discord server somewhere as well. I might even include a server invite, who knows? Who knows? Anyway.
This is Satan signing off. Goodbye.